The wind cut like blades of ice when Amara heard the crying. A weak sound, almost lost in the storm that turned everything white around the small cabin where she lived with her grandmother. The temperature had dropped to 71 degrees below zero that January morning, the kind of cold that kills any living creature exposed to it within minutes. Amara was only 12 years old, but she knew those mountains like no one else. Her father had been a forest ranger before disappearing 3 years earlier during an expedition, and she grew up learning every trail, every shelter, every sign of nature. That was why, when the crying echoed for the third time, she did not hesitate. She put on her patched thermal clothes, grabbed the flashlight that barely worked, and went out the door, ignoring her grandmother's screams. Snow covered everything in thick layers, and the sky was gray like molten lead. Amara followed the sound to a partially frozen ravine, where the ice formed translucent and treacherous walls. That was when she saw it, a small baby gorilla, no bigger than a cat, trapped between blocks of ice. Its brown eyes were wide with terror, and its dark fur was beginning to turn white from the layer of frost forming over it. How did a gorilla get there, in those frozen mountains, thousands of kilometers from its natural habitat? The question crossed Amara's mind for only a second before she climbed down into the slippery ravine. Her hands trembled, not only from the cold, but from urgency. The baby was dying. She tried to pull it free, but the ice held it like a cruel trap. Amara's fingers began to lose feeling as she dug around the small furry body. The baby looked at her with an expression she would never forget. It was fear, but also hope, as if the animal knew she was its only chance. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave in the comments what you thought and which city or country you are watching from. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only 20 minutes, Amara managed to free the baby gorilla. It was almost unconscious. Amara wrapped the baby in her own coat and ran back home, her lungs burning with each breath of the freezing air. Grandmother Helen opened the door with wide eyes, but asked no questions. Together, they placed the small gorilla near the fireplace and began to warm him slowly, wrapping him in warm blankets. For 3 days and 3 nights, Amara did not leave his side. She fed the baby warm milk using an improvised bottle, massaged his small hands to restore circulation, and sang softly the songs her mother used to sing. The gorilla, whom she decided to call Quito, fought between life and death. There were moments when his eyes closed and Amara felt her heart tighten, thinking she had lost him. It was on the 4th day that everything changed. Amara woke up to violent knocking on the door. They were men in uniform, accompanied by a man in an expensive suit who seemed completely out of place in those mountains. He introduced himself as Dr. Voss, director of a private research center located 50 kilometers away. "We lost a valuable specimen during a transfer," he said in a cold voice, his eyes fixed on Quito. "There was an accident with the transport vehicle during the storm. I came to retrieve our property." Property. The word fell like a stone in Amara's stomach. She looked at Quito, who now clung tightly to her arm, trembling. That was not a lost pet. That was a baby being treated as an object. Grandmother Helen placed her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder, and Amara felt the tension in the grip. "He almost died," Amara said, her voice firmer than she felt. "You abandoned him in the ice." "It was an unfortunate incident," Dr. Voss replied without emotion. "But he belongs to the center. We have legal documentation." He held out papers. "We are developing important research on primate adaptation to extreme environments. This specimen is crucial." Amara looked at the papers, then at Quito. Something was very wrong. That night, after Dr. Voss left saying he would return in the morning with legal authorities, Amara could not sleep. She held Quito against her chest, feeling the baby's rapid heartbeat. Grandmother Helen had grown strangely quiet after the visit, and that worried Amara even more than the threats from the man in the suit. "Grandma, what do we do?" Amara whispered in the darkness of the living room. Helen lit the oil lamp, and her eyes shone with a determination Amara rarely saw. "Your father left me something before he disappeared. I always thought I would never need to use it." She went to the bedroom and returned with a rusty metal box. Inside were documents, photographs, and an old recorder. Amara pressed play with trembling hands. Her father's voice filled the room. "If anyone is listening to this, it's because something went wrong. I discovered that the research center is conducting illegal experiments on captured animals. They don't study adaptation. They test the limits of survival, exposing animals to extreme conditions until death. I have proof, photographs, stolen reports. I'm taking everything to the federal authorities, but if I disappear..." The recording ended abruptly. Amara felt hot tears run down her face. Her father had not abandoned the family. He had been silenced. And now she understood why Quito had been alone on that deadly ice. He had not escaped from an accident. He was part of a test. Throughout the entire dawn, Amara and Helen planned. They digitized every document, every photograph her father had left. Amara used her grandmother's old cell phone to send everything to journalists, animal protection organizations, and authorities. She wrote Quito's story, attached photos of the baby nearly dead in the ice, and explained everything. When the sun rose, Dr. Voss arrived with 2 security guards and a local officer who was clearly bribed. He smiled confidently as he climbed the steps of the cabin. "I've come to take what is mine," he declared. Amara opened the door holding Quito. "You can try." Dr. Voss lost his smile. "Girl, you don't understand the situation. We have legal rights over this animal. Resisting will be worse for you and your grandmother." He motioned for the guards to move forward, but at that exact moment, 3 white vans sped up the snowy road at high speed. Federal agents jumped out of the vehicles with weapons drawn. Along with them, news crews from 2 national channels pointed cameras directly at Dr. Voss. A woman in a suit approached, presenting a court order. "Dr. Voss, you are under arrest for animal cruelty, trafficking of protected species, and homicide," she announced as handcuffs were placed on his wrists. "We have evidence of 17 animals killed in your experiments, including the disappearance of forest ranger Thomas Ocone 3 years ago." Amara's blood ran cold. Thomas Ocone. Her father. He was dead. Her legs gave way, but grandmother Helen held her firmly. The local officer who had arrived with Voss tried to slip away discreetly, but was intercepted and also arrested. "He found out too much," Voss spat the words as he was taken away. "Your idiot father wanted to be a hero. See where that got him." Amara felt fury burn inside her, but also a strange peace. Her father had been a hero, and now she had finished his work. The cameras turned to Amara. A reporter approached her gently. "You saved this baby and exposed a criminal operation that lasted for years. How do you feel?" Amara looked at Quito, who was watching her with those deep brown eyes. "I feel like I did what was right. My father taught me that." Her voice trembled, but it was firm. "No one deserves to suffer. Neither animals nor people. And those who cause suffering must be held accountable." In the following weeks, 13 employees of the center were arrested. The facility was permanently shut down. Investigators found the remains of Amara's father in a remote area of the property. Finally, she and her grandmother were able to bury him with dignity. Quito was taken by specialists from a royal primate sanctuary, where he would live with other rescued gorillas. Amara visited before he left and hugged the baby one last time. "You're going to be okay now," she whispered. 6 months had passed since that icy day. Spring had arrived in the mountains, melting the snow and bringing wildflowers that covered the fields like a colorful carpet. Amara was in the kitchen helping grandmother Helen prepare lunch when she heard soft knocking at the door. She opened it and was left speechless. Standing in the doorway was a woman wearing the uniform of the primate sanctuary, smiling broadly. And beside her, bigger, stronger, with shiny, healthy fur, was Quito. The gorilla saw her and let out a sound that seemed like a cry of joy, running to hug her tightly. "He couldn't stop being sad," the woman explained while Amara cried holding Quito. "The veterinarian said he had formed a deep bond with you. We managed to get special authorization for regular visits. Quito will come to see you once a month, if you want." Amara couldn't speak, she just nodded as tears streamed down her face. Quito gently touched her face with his huge hands, as if checking that she was okay. In that moment, Amara understood something fundamental: love and kindness always return in unexpected ways. Amara's story inspired real change. New animal protection laws were passed. The sanctuary received enough donations to expand and rescue dozens of other animals. The cabin in the mountains, once isolated and forgotten, became a visitation point for students who wanted to learn about conservation and courage. Helen hugged her granddaughter as they watched Quito play in the garden. "Your father would be proud," she said softly. You finished what he started and did even more. Amara smiled, finally at peace. She learned that a single person can make a difference, that courage does not mean the absence of fear, but acting despite it. That defending the defenseless is always worth it, even when the world seems cold and impossible. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what you thought. Share it to inspire other people. Because stories of kindness need to be told, and compassion needs to echo throughout the world.